They lied to you. And they didn't just lie about small things. They lied about the single most important financial event of your lifetime. Think back to 2018. What were you told? You were told that America was finally fighting back. You were told that the trade war with China was about protecting American jobs. You were told that we were decoupling. You were told that the era of shipping our wealth overseas was over. It felt good to hear, didn't it? It felt like someone was finally standing up for the little guy. But while you were cheering for the tariffs, while you were distracted by the political circus on CNN and Fox News, a robbery was taking place in plain sight. It wasn't a robbery of a bank. It was a robbery of your future. Because at the exact same moment that politicians were screaming America first, the biggest banks in the United States were quietly executing the largest capital exit in history. They weren't bringing money home. They were sending it away. And they weren't sending it to friendly allies. They were sending it directly into the markets of the very country we were supposed to be fighting. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated, mathematical move by the smart money to escape the US dollar before it's too late. They pulled the greatest head fake in financial history. They got you to look left at the politics while they moved trillions of dollars to the right. And now, as inflation eats your savings and the national debt spirals out of control, you are starting to feel the consequences. You are the one left holding the bag. Today, we are going to expose the timeline. We are going to look at the specific dates, the specific meetings, and the specific numbers that prove this betrayal. We are going to show you exactly how BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs built a lifeboat for themselves while selling you a ticket on the Titanic. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a crime scene investigation. And the victim of this crime is the American middle class, the smoking gun. In any investigation, you have to follow the money. Words are cheap. Politicians lie. CEOs lie. But money never lies. Money leaves a trail. And the trail of money from 2018 to 2020 tells a story that is completely different from the one you saw on TV. Let's look at the smoking gun. The date was June 1st, 2018. Remember that date? It was less than 1 month before the United States officially imposed the first major tariffs on Chinese goods. The rhetoric from Washington was at a boiling point. Threats were flying back and forth. But in the quiet, air-conditioned boardrooms of MSCI, a decision was made that changed everything. MSCI is the company that controls the indices that the world's biggest pension funds follow. On that day, June 1st, 2018, MSCI officially added Chinese shares, stocks traded on the mainland, to its emerging markets index. Why does this matter? Because it wasn't a suggestion. It was a mandate. The moment those shares were added to the index, trillions of dollars of passive capital were legally forced to buy them. Your pension fund, your 401k, the endowment of your university, they all had to sell us assets and buy Chinese assets to match the index. And who pushed for this? Who lobbied for this inclusion for years? The major U.S. asset managers, BlackRock, Vanguard. They wanted this door opened, thick, and they opened it exactly when the trade war provided the perfect cover. Between 2018 and 2020, while you were arguing with your neighbor about tariffs, U.S. financial holding in Chinese assets skyrocketed. By the end of 2020, U.S. investors held over $1.2 trillion in Chinese stocks and bonds. Some data suggests the real exposure, including derivatives and offshore accounts, was closer to $1.4 trillion. Let that sink in. $1.4 trillion. That is not pocket change. That is a massive systemic vote of confidence in the Chinese market and a vote of no confidence in the U.S. dollar. During the trade war's peak, JP Morgan wasn't packing up and leaving China. They were applying for permission to take full ownership of their Chinese futures business. Goldman Sachs wasn't decoupling. They were buying out their local partners to take 100% control of their securities ventures on the mainland. BlackRock wasn't retreating. They were launching new investment products specifically designed for Chinese clients. Do these look like the actions of people who believe the U.S. is winning a trade war? Do these look like the actions of patriots bringing money home? No. These are the actions of people fleeing a burning building. They were securing their foothold in the next system because they knew the current system was mathematically doomed. The motivation why they ran. So, the question is why? Why would the most powerful financial institutions in America bet against their own currency? Why would they risk the bad publicity? Because they can count. And they know that the American public cannot. They looked at the balance sheet of the United States and they saw a disaster waiting to happen. They saw three deadly numbers that guarantee the destruction of the dollar's purchasing power. Number 1, the debt spiral. They saw the U.S. national debt climbing vertically, from 20 trillion to 25 trillion to 30 trillion. They knew that this debt could never be paid back in honest money. There is simply not enough tax revenue in the entire economy to pay it off. Number 2, the interest trap. They calculated the interest rates. They knew that as the Federal Reserve raised rates to fight inflation, the cost of servicing that debt would explode, and they were right. In 2024, the U.S. government spent $882 billion just on interest payments. That is more than the entire defense budget. Think about what that means. The U.S. empire is now spending more to pay its bankers than it is to pay its soldiers. Number 3, the unfunded liabilities. They looked at Social Security and Medicare. They saw hundreds of trillions of dollars in promises that the government had made to baby boomers. Promises that have zero funding behind them. The smart money put these three numbers together and came to one conclusion. Default is inevitable. But the United States will not default by telling you we can't pay. That would cause a revolution. Instead, they will default by inflation. They will print the money to pay the bills. They will pay the bonds, they will pay the pensions, and they will pay the military. But they will pay them with dollars that are worth 50% less, than 80% less, than 99% less. This is called financial repression. It is a fancy term for theft. 'Tis a way of transferring the cost of the government's debt onto the backs of the savers. The banks saw this coming years ago. They knew that holding U.S. cash and U.S. government bonds was a suicide mission. It was like holding an ice cube in a frantic oven. So, they needed an exit strategy. They needed to move their wealth into real assets and foreign markets before the inflation really kicked in. That is why they went to China. That is why they bought real estate. That is why they bought commodities. They weren't being anti-American. They were being pro-survival. They were getting out of the dollar zone before the devaluation destroyed their capital and the trade war narrative. That was just the smokescreen to keep you calm while they headed for the exits. The mechanism of theft. Now, let's talk about how this crime affects you. Because while they were diversifying, you were being told to do the exact opposite. What does the average financial advisor tell the average American? Buy a 60/40th portfolio. Put your money in us. Treasury bonds. Keep 6 months of expenses in cash. The U.S. government is the safest borrower in the world. They fed you these lies while they were dumping the very assets they told you to buy. When you hold U.S. Treasury bonds, you are lending money to the government. You are the creditor. And when the government inflates the currency to pay off its debt, you are the one paying the price. Inflation is not a natural disaster. It is not caused by supply chains or Putin or greedy corporations. Those are the excuses they use to hide the truth. Inflation is a policy. It is a tax that no one voted for. Every time you go to the grocery store and see that eggs are $8, that is the tax. Every time you look at house prices and realize you can never afford to move, that is the tax. Every time you see your savings account losing value in real terms, that is the tax. The elite transfer that tax to you. By moving their money into assets that rise with inflation like stocks, real estate, and foreign ventures, they protected themselves. By leaving you in cash and bonds, they ensured that you would pay for the bailout. It is a wealth transfer mechanism. It moves purchasing power from the people who work for money to the people who print money. And the scale of this transfer is staggering. Since the pandemic began, trillions of dollars of wealth have moved from the middle class to the top 1%. This wasn't luck. It was positioning. They were positioned for inflation because they knew it was the only mathematical way out for the government. You were positioned for stability because you believed the government's lies. You believed them when they said inflation was transitory. Remember that? Transitory. They looked you in the eye and lied to you for 2 years. Why? Because if they told you the truth that the dollar is being debased to save the system, you would have panicked. You would have sold your bonds. You would have dumped your cash. And that would have collapsed the system before they were ready. They needed you to stay calm. They needed you to stay in the dollar. They needed you to be the bag holder. And that is exactly what happened. The reality check, USVs, them. So here we are in 2025. The investigation is complete. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is no longer, are they lying? The question is, what do we do now? Because the gap between us and them has never been wider. Look at their portfolios versus yours. The ultra-wealthy hold very little cash. They hold businesses. They hold land. They hold gold. They hold art. They hold assets in Singapore, Switzerland, and yes, China. They are diversified globally and physically. Now look at the average American. Your house is your main asset, but it's tied to the U.S. local economy. Your retirement is in a 401k filled with paper assets denominated in U.S. dollars. Your savings are in a bank account paying you peanuts while inflation eats 10% of your purchasing power a year. You are all in on a system that is failing. They are all out on a system that is failing. That is the difference. That is the betrayal. They used their knowledge of the system to escape it, while using their control of the media to keep you trapped in it. Does it make you angry? It should. It should make you furious. But anger alone will not save your retirement. Anger will not pay for your children's education. Anger will not put food on the table when the dollar loses another 50% of its value. You have to turn that anger into action. You have to stop listening to what they say and start mimicking what they do. You have to become your own central bank. You have to fire your financial advisor who is still telling you that 2% inflation is coming back. It is not coming back. The math doesn't allow it. The debt is too high. The only way forward is more printing, more debasement, and more financial repression. You need to accept this reality. The normal you remember is gone. We are in a new era of fiscal dominance, where the government's need for cash overrides everything else. In this era, cash is trash. Bonds are certificates of confiscation, and blind trust in the system is a one-way ticket to poverty. The shield's your action plan. So, how do you fight back? How do you build a shield against this theft? You have to do exactly what BlackRock did. You have to step out of the dollar bubble. I am not saying you need to move to China. I am not saying you need billions of dollars. But you do need to own things that cannot be printed. Number 1, gold and silver. This is the ultimate money. It has no counterparty risk. It is not a liability of the government. When the dollar dies, gold rises. Central banks around the world, including China's, are buying gold at record paces right now. Why? Because they know the dollar game is ending. If the central banks are buying gold, why aren't you? Number 2, real assets. Land, real estate, commodities, energy, things that people need to survive. Things that have intrinsic value. When the currency collapses, the price of these things in dollars will skyrocket. You want to own the thing that is going up, not the currency that is going down. Number 3. Bitcoin. I know, it's controversial. But look at it as an insurance policy. It is a digital asset that exists outside of the banking system. It cannot be diluted by the Federal Reserve. It cannot be confiscated easily. It is the only asset in the world that is truly finite. Wall Street knows this. That is why BlackRock, the same BlackRock that went to China, just launched a Bitcoin ETF. Do you see the pattern? They trashed Bitcoin for years, calling it a scam, while they quietly built the infrastructure to own it. Now they are selling it to you at $60,000. Watch what they do, not what they say. Number 4. Self-education. This is the most important asset. You have to understand the macro game. You have to understand how inflation works. You have to stop trusting the CPI numbers they release on TV. Create your own inflation index based on the things you actually buy. If your personal inflation rate is 15%, you need investments that yield 16% just to break even. A 5% savings account is not a safe haven. It is a guaranteed loss. The window is closing. The betrayal has already happened. The $1.4 trillion has already moved. The debt has already been monetized. We cannot change the past. We cannot force the politicians to be honest. We cannot force the banks to be patriotic. But we can change how we react to it. The door is not closed yet. There is still time to position yourself. There is still time to get out of the paper trap and into real value. But the window is closing fast. Every day the debt grows. The risk of a sudden currency shock increases. Every day you wait is a day your labor is being stolen from you. Don't let them win. Do not let them take the fruit of your hard work and inflate it away to pay for their mistakes. You know the truth now. You have seen the evidence. You understand the motive. The investigation is closed. The verdict is guilty. Now, the sentence is up to you. Will you be a victim of the Great Betrayal? Or will you be one of the few who saw it coming and prepared? The choice is yours. But remember, in this game, there are no spectators. You are either at the table or you are on the menu. Make sure you are at the table. In my next report, I am going to give you a specific step-by-step breakdown of the anti-inflation portfolio. I will show you the 5 specific assets that BlackRock is quietly accumulating right now, and how you can buy them without millions of dollars. You do not want to miss that. It is the blueprint for survival. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, share this video. The more people who know the truth, the harder it is for them to steal from us. Wake up, your neighbors. Wake up, your family. The time for sleepwalking is over. I'll see you in the next investigation.